right. Well, good afternoon. Well, good evening again to everyone. Thank you guys for joining us today for this talk. I don't see Sister Angela on yet, but we just want to thank the Women's Ministry of FGA for asking us to actually sponsor something like this to talk about issues that are affecting us and affecting our communities as women, and just affecting us how we relate to each other, throughout our generations and stuff. Thank you for sharing your email addresses. If you could put your cameras on, it'd be nice to see your faces and to see everyone who's joined this evening. I know we've all been coming in from a busy day, I'm sure, but we're gonna, try to chat with each other and be able to see each other today. So my name is Tiffany Bacchus. For those of you who are not familiar with me, I am a family nurse practitioner. I work in the Brooklyn and Queens community and New York period, practicing as a clinician, seeing patients in our community. And a lot of the topics that we're going to cover today are out of, I think, all of our practices. We've seen issues amongst our population, our race, that we're not really, communicating our health care needs and things to each other within family relationships. We're not sure how to address different disease processes or questions or things that we may have. So, we're just trying to open the conversation up to folks to see where we're at, kind of empower you a little bit on how you can address your concerns with your providers, things that you should be looking out for, like preventative screenings for yourself, addressing your mental health, and just to be a resource to folks, here for, whatever their needs are. Okay, no problem. If you can't put on your cameras, it's cool. It's not a problem. But it's, we're happy to have everyone here today. That's just a little bit about me. I'll have Fran kind of like introduce herself as well, and Shannon, and then we can start.
Good evening, everyone. I am Francesca Sampson. Just to echo what Tiffany stated, I want to thank the Women's Ministry for having us to having this conversation. A lot of needs are need to be met, which is mental, physical, and we're just going to be here and share some information on some generational trauma. So I'm not going to speak too long because we're going to get more in depth. I'm going to pass it over to Shannon to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shannon Cameron. I'm a psychotherapist here in Brooklyn with my own practice. And like Tiffany and Dr. Fran said, we're here to address some of the issues in our community that we don't always address and talk about some of those health concerns. I'm happy to be here, and I'm thankful that you all are here with us tonight. I look forward to sharing some tips on breathing with everybody and understanding your mental health and your generational trauma from the perspective of the facts. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you guys. I'm not sure, but if everyone kind of want to introduce themselves on the call, that would be nice, so we know who we're talking to in the room. And I guess I'll ask Pastor Barfield to go first, and then we can just kind of like go around.
Greetings. I'm sorry. I'm doing 1,000 things at one time. Can you repeat what you asked me to do?
Oh, just to introduce yourself so we can all
Oh, okay. Well, you already
with us.
did that. All righty. Let me show my face. Amen. Praise the Lord. I'm Pastor Heather Barfield. I don't know what else to say. I'm interested in mental health, obviously, and I'm just excited to learn what I can. Amen.
Amen.
Hi, good evening. I'm so grateful for joining tonight and Claudette Hall. And the reason I'm on, I just need some tips for my son because, to able to like help him. I was trying to get him, like I gave him the flyers right? But I know he busy at work, so I just, you know, get on. So at least I could able to learn and able to just pass it down to him how he could cope with certain stuff.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Sabrina. I'm just on for support.
All right, I guess we may have to start calling some names out here.
Hi, Dorothy. Hi, this is Dorothy Richardson White, and I am here to support and to just get the information for my loved ones. Thank you.
I am Louisa Sinclair, just trying to get some information.
Amen. This is the Angela here. I'm just here to support information and to encourage you young ladies to keep doing the great job that you're doing. God bless you.
Hello, women of God. I'm Michelle Standback, and I'm here because I love mental health. I like to get more information on it. And it's important that we get it because the time is now. We all have to get help one way or the other. Thank God.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Wright, and I am here to get information and to support Tiffany. She is we're former co-workers and had the pleasure of working with her for a number of years. I'm a registered nurse as well.
Thanks for joining, Nicole.
Thanks, Tim.
Good evening. I am Kay Nurse, and I am here to get some information and to share it and pass it along to those who are in need. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yolanda Jones. I was invited here, interested in topic, want to learn more. I'm a recent MSW graduate, and so just interested to hear and learn information. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Denise Doris Brown. I'm so happy to be here and I saw the flyer. Thank you ladies for doing this. I am also a social worker, so I'm very, very much so into mental health and trauma and also getting more resources. So thank you all this evening, especially our panelists.
Thanks for joining.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dom. I assist Shannon with her Women's Healing Circle in Brooklyn. And I'm also here just to learn a little bit more.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Pastor Melinda Bacchus. I'm also here to support and also to gain some very vital information.
Hello, good evening. This is Judith Daniels, and definitely a subject of much interest of mine. I always been involved in that area myself, and a subject of much interest, especially after the pandemic, just seeing how many of our young people and adults have been affected and afflicted with mental health disturbances. It's so hard to believe that we are so bombarded with so much stress and different diagnoses that you're seeing coming out. So it's a subject that is very dear and close to my heart. And I'm doing, for the last 3 years, I've been working alongside with ACS and the mental with therapists, helping out some young people from especially school. In the school system, there's cutting classes, they're not going back to school, they're not coping. After the pandemic has gotten so bad. So I kind of have a front row seat talking to these youths and working alongside the psychotherapists and different healers. So I'm so happy to see that Full Gospel and you young ladies are starting this is much needed, very much needed in our community, especially the churches. You don't hear people expressing how they feel. And forgive me for not putting on my video, but I just popped up and remembered that the session was going on, and I jumped up. I just finished working with one of the cases, and I said, "Oh my God, I gotta get on." So I'm very happy that this is happening, and I pray that it's continue doing it, because it's of utmost necessity. And Shannon, of course, and Tata, you're my babies. So I love what you're doing. I applaud you. I support you. I'm right here. So by all means, and of course, Sister Francesca, I am very excited about this. This is really, really a very great opportunity for us. So keep on doing the work. Don't come down. Keep building. This is a very needed area, much needed in our youths, and us adults too. We need that time to talk and share. So thank you for what you're doing. I applaud you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Roanne. I am from Consuming Fire Ministries. Sister Angela invited us, and I'm here just to hear how everything ties into the Word. We know the Lord wants us all to have a sound mind, and I'm looking forward to hearing what we are going to focus on today.
Awesome. I'm not sure if we got everyone, but if not, you can just let me know. But I think in the sake of time, we can just start the presentation. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put your hand up, or, interrupt and ask your questions. This is meant to be an interactive discussion. This is not meant for us to just be kind of talking at you, but kind of having a conversation with you about these different topics and how we address certain things. So I'm going to start it off with how we actually address these concerns in terms of our physical health. Dr. Fran is going to address our mental health, and Shannon is going to end off the discussion about some stress and coping techniques that we can actually use as, women, mothers, just in the community, how we address each other, how we address, dealing with our own issues and things like that. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me just make sure I have everything open.
Tiffany, this is Nicole. I apologize. My screen's not on. I am driving. I'm on the road right now.
Not a problem. That's
Okay.
quite all right. Quite
Thank
all
you.
right. What I can do is, after we have the discussion, we can share the slides with you guys. If we have everybody's email address, we can make sure that we get the information to you. And any other additional information that you would need, in terms of like resources and whatnot, we can definitely look into things to, help you out. Yeah, so we'll share it after, once we have your email address, we'll share it with this group, okay? So basically, we're trying to break down barriers to physical health. Our concern was that the way we address health conditions and certain things in our community, sometimes it's very hush-hush, and we don't talk about it, or we don't share with each other for different reasons. It's partly our health belief system, how we were taught, how we learned, how we seen our mothers and our grandmothers deal with certain things. So I think when we were discussing doing this, and Sister Angela approached us, us kind of learning how to have these conversations is something that's very important in today's time. Sister Judah had mentioned COVID happening, and a lot of people ended up having issues during COVID because there was different health concerns that were underlying that they weren't aware of, whether it be high blood pressure, whether it be like, asthma or breathing issues or other things like that, and it affected them. And blood clotting conditions and whatnot, and ultimately it ended up having adverse effects on our folks in our community, not physically and also mentally. So knowing how to, like, have these conversations with our families, with our moms, with our daughters, for those of us who are like in between, that intergenerational, that in between middle generation, is very important. Having certain information can help your provider know how to deal with the conditions that you have, and probably get a better, treatment plan for what's happening with you. So I titled my portion "Health is Wealth" because if you're not healthy, it doesn't matter what else is happening. You pretty much won't be able to have the fullest life that you can lead. So this is a little bit about me. I kind of spoke to you guys about it already and introduced myself. But currently I have my own practice right now, my telehealth practice, and I've been working predominantly with women who are kind of like in that premenopausal or menopausal kind of state, and helping them to cope with and deal with those different conditions. So hence us having these conversations, because a lot of these conditions that we have and a lot of our mental health issues that we're seeing, depression, anxiety issues, physical issues with blood pressure, weight gain, all of that stuff kind of stems at this kind of like middle age life kind of area. And I think the conversations need to happen earlier so it's easier for us to cope when we get to these stages in life and have to deal with these things. So again, like a health belief model is like, what do we consider healthy? I think all of us have kind of a view of what we consider a healthy person to be. When to seek health care for different conditions. How do we break cycles and issues with our health? Again, this is like having the conversations, right? Learning to be proactive about certain things, whether it be your mental health or your physical health, how to deal with stress, and how we can demonstrate self-care, and building on healing ourselves. So again, we can start with the first question: what do we consider healthy, right? Everybody would have a different view. These are some things that we can think of, right? When we consider what a healthy woman or, person to be, right? We can consider their weight, we can consider how they look, we consider, if they look happy, if they look sad, if they're tired, etc. But none of them defines how healthy a person actually is. How do we learn these things? So I mentioned we learn them from watching our moms and our grandmothers and, other women that we come into contact with in our community, and how they deal with certain types of conditions and illnesses and stuff. Whether they sought healthcare when something was going on, whether the conversations were happening in your home or within your family. I know in some households, folks don't really talk about certain things. So like, let's say you needed to have like screenings like mammography or colonoscopies and things like that. It's not really discussed. Results aren't discussed. Sometimes even seeking out the doctor's care is not something that is like, common knowledge in certain households. And then it can leave your family members or even leave you at like a disadvantage later on. Because then folks would not know how to support you when you have certain things happening in your health. So again, your health belief model is perceived, your perception of what a healthy person is. Your cue to action is how you feel, like what really will cause you to seek health care. Is it when you're at that point where you cannot manage things on your own, or would you seek help earlier for that? I've had patients that came into my practice and they've been complaining of chest pain or having issues with breathing for a period of time, but not really seeking out help for it. And by the time they get to us, it's now an emergency situation now, because something that maybe might have been something very minor that we probably could have dealt with. It could have been something that we could have like maybe prescribed something for. It could have been dehydration or, maybe a vitamin deficiency or things like that, has now turned into a arrhythmia or cardiac arrhythmia where we need to have different interventions and needing hospitalization. We don't want this to continue to be our storyline or to be the case. So this is, the purpose of us having more of these conversations, because we don't want it to be later that you're seeking the care. We want you to actually address it earlier. So, like the health police model of like, seeing when our families did certain things, we're kind of trying to, I guess, change the way we kind of look at things and the trajectory of how we deal with things here. So, just keep that in mind, that how our parents may have dealt with stuff may not necessarily have been the most correct way to do things, and we're trying to make sure that we're being a lot more proactive, and empowering folks to be more proactive. So knowing that if, I don't feel good, it's okay, that I don't have to like push myself to to keep going, but I can seek the help that I need now before I end up, in a worse situation. We're going to touch on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is like something that we just use just to kind of like guide us in how we deal with certain conditions. What I'm discussing is like our physiological need, which is like, our health, making sure that we address certain things, making sure that we're drinking water when we should, that we're eating a balanced diet, and that even if we need to know what a balanced diet is, that we can seek out that information. Seeking out a good healthcare provider that you're comfortable speaking to. That could be, different things, that will be something that you would have to kind of like figure out what your comfort level is. But you would need a provider that you're comfortable in. So if something happens, you can speak up with that doctor. Again, like I said, these things are passed down. The questions that you may have, other folks probably still have, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of questions that, folks have about their health. And again, like, we're here to be a resource to you. So if there are certain questions that you have, feel free to kind of, put it out there or put it in the chat. But I think my main thing right now is that how we deal and cope with change of life conditions is something that's not readily addressed in our community. And a lot of things kind of stem from like our hormones and the way our body is balancing certain things. And if you have an imbalance in certain hormone levels, it will cause issues. It can cause issues with your heart, it can cause issues with your blood pressure, and it can cause issues with your perception or your mental health, of how we deal with certain things. Do you guys have any questions before we move on? I'm rushing through the slides because I know we have the other presenters, but again, like I said, feel free to jump in. Okay, are you guys ready for a question? Okay, I just want to give you like a minute to look at these things and kind of like brainstorm or think about how you actually heard folks in your family or women that have been around you actually discuss some of these things. Have we heard anybody actually mention anything about mental health or mental wellness as we were like coming up? I know in my family, certain things weren't like, there's no stress. What do you have to be stressed about? That's been kind of like a kind of common theme. And change of life stuff, like that never is discussed really. So again, like you can take a moment to kind of think about it. And if you want to share, you can. But these are things that came to mind when those questions came up in front of me, right? You dare not ask mommy why she's hot, right? You don't ask or say that you're depressed, right? Because in their day, they didn't have anything named depression or had to deal with any of that stuff. And you don't have stress when you think you have stress, right? Does those things sound familiar? I know in my family they are. And I've heard it from other folks, right?
Yeah, it's so familiar.
Oh, okay. So I know it's not something that's not commonly heard. I've even heard that they never had postpartum back in their day. They don't know where that came up that from. That's something that's kind of like made up now. Again, like I said, a lot of these things have to deal with our hormone balances, and changes and fluctuations in those levels. So of course, depression kind of comes with, different changes with our progesterone and our estrogen and testosterone. All of those things affect how we kind of like perceive different things and how we deal with things, whether you're sad, you're happy, whatever. And I know like around certain times of the month, you can notice that you're changed a little bit. Maybe some days you're like a little happier, you're a little tired, you're a little, but again, those are conversations that we never had before. And it could be that, our parents never had those conversations with their parents because they were, like working and they had other things being priority. And, kind of looking at things that affected health wasn't really top priority to them. So now I think it's our time to kind of make it that priority and to start having the important conversations with our children, with our parents, and the folks around us about what is being healthy, what things are affecting you, and how do we address those things so we don't end up in a bad situation in terms of our health. Okay, so it's up to us to kind of decide on what our family's journey is when it comes to healthcare. How are we demonstrating self-care and prevention to our families? What does that look like to us? Is it health? Is it happiness? Is it just wealth? Or are we looking to really like seek out the help that we need? Are we looking to start that workout routine so that we can have that muscle balance and that bone health, when we get older? Are we looking at our diet and seeing how we can teach our children how to have a balanced diet so that later on that they're not affected? Are we teaching those healthy habits to our families and incorporating that in our everyday life? Just certain things to think about. I know it's not always easy because, we live in a very fast-paced society. We're all kind of like, running and sticking and moving, trying to get things done. But little things have a big effect later on if we make the small changes today. And they can benefit you later on, whether it be having better blood pressure control later on because, we were watching our diet, or we like increased a little bit of cardio in what we're doing, or, teaching the fitness or, the breathing techniques to kind of like decrease stress, and teaching self-care techniques, all of those things combined kind of changes the way that our families look at things and how, let's say, our children are going to like have health or a healthier life later on. So the whole goal for us doing this is to break the unfavorable cycles. We want our families to be healthy. We want us to have better mental health. We want us to be able to have the conversations and be free to have the conversations without judgment and without us having to justify why we feel a certain way, and creating a safe space for all of our family members, folks that we come into contact with, to actually have the conversations about our health, what we're feeling, and things that we can do to be better. So again, evaluating what health issues your family has. Some people, diabetes runs very rampant in their family, and you can see it throughout all of their family line. When you see that that's happening, we can make certain little changes. We call them lifestyle modifications. So changes, again, like I said, your diet, exercise, incorporating certain things into your daily routine. Looking for a good provider, whether that be someone from your community that you're comfortable with, that you can speak to openly. Finding that safe provider, that safe space that you can speak to about the different conditions in your family. Now, this is very important because, again, like I said, we've seen time and time again that family members have come in, and it's like at a late stage when they do come in, and then the whole family is shocked that certain things is happening because it was never talked about that maybe, mom was in treatment for cancer, or, this was what was happening with her all along when she was having these appointments, because it was a big secret and we didn't share what was going on. We don't want that to be the case for everyone. We want to know if, like, something is happening, that you would have that runway that you can start getting yourself checked out and go for those screenings and make those changes earlier. Okay, so again, stress effect, I'm gonna have Dr. Sampson talk a little bit more about that, and Shannon, so I can skip over that, but stress plays a big part in our health, and how we deal with certain things. So, learning the techniques, again, like I said, is very, very important. And stress, how it affects us. Again, symptoms that we may not really realize that it is stress that's causing us. Cardiac changes is a big thing. Headaches, body aches, weight gain. Again, that weight gain, because that cortisol level when we're stressed spikes, and then your body tends to hold on to all of that, water weight, whatever. Menstrual changes, changes in appetite, gastrointestinal problems. All of those things happen when we are constantly stressed. So again, the goal is to mature gracefully and change our family's trajectory, and improve this life cycle that we have. So self-care, again, and it takes a village. Don't ever think that you're alone. Seek the help that you need to advocate for yourself, and find your community would be, if I had to leave any final words with you guys, that would be it. Again, I'm just taking this scripture because this has kind of been on my heart. I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in good health. And that is one, I think, one of the driving factors between, with us having these discussions, is that we need to be in good health and prosper. And then I will give it over to Dr. Sampson to continue with the mental health, and I will stop sharing.
Tiffany, just to kind of piggyback off of what it is that you were saying. My name is Oslin. I'm a family nurse practitioner as well. And I just wanted to kind of basically stress the importance of being aware of what your numbers are. It's important for us to know, as a community, what is your normal blood pressure, things like your cholesterol level, and such, and just being aware, because, as you said, health truly is wealth. That's basically all I wanted to kind of add to that. And, we need to learn how to become our own best advocates, as opposed to just depending on, the healthcare team to do so, and it starts here. It starts with just kind of each one teach one, more or less.
Exactly. That's such a good point that you made. I will actually share like a fact sheet at the end of this with the numbers and the ranges to look for your blood pressure, your blood glucose, your cholesterol, and those preventative screenings that you would need. It's like you said, we have to be proactive about us. And that's the whole goal.
Absolutely. And I guess one of the other things that you did mention, again, to piggyback off of it, is just the various screenings that's needed, such as colonoscopy and having a mammogram done, those types of things, because it does help when at this age, what types of things should I have done? What types of things should I have in place? So I think that would be like a great resource.
Yes. Okay. Okay, Fran is not able to share her slides.
Yeah, I believe you have to enable everyone else to share. Okay, and hello again. While Tiffany does that, so I'm just gonna give you a little brief background on myself. So I'm a social worker. I've worked as a social worker in the past, but currently I'm a professor, so I teach social work and I teach sociology at 2 different campuses. Mental health, as someone mentioned before we even started, since COVID is just pretty much shine a light on what we've been going through and not being able to have that conversation about, okay, I think it's working now. So going through COVID, are you guys able to see my slides?
Not yet.
Not
We
yet?
can now.
We can see them
I
now.
can now. Can see it now.
Okay. Yeah, so COVID pretty much forced us to have these conversations that, we were shunned from speaking up before. COVID actually forced us to have some of these conversations. Why? Because it was impacting us. It was impacting our physical health. It was impacting our mental health, isolation, domestic violence. All of these things were high during COVID. So, my focus is going to be on trauma. I'm trying to get it a little bigger. Okay, there we go. So my focus is going to be on trauma this evening. We're talking about generational trauma and breaking generational trauma, breaking those barriers. Not everything that passed down from generation is always positive. So just breaking whatever negativity we've inherited, whether it's from our community, whether it's from our family members, the caregivers that we were surrounded, just breaking that and passing positivity onto the future generation. So what is trauma? Just simply put, it's a deeply disturbing experience. So it's an experience that you've had, someone has had, that it just stays on your mind. Sometimes you can be reminded about the experience you've had based on whatever things you're seeing on a daily basis, who you're encountering. Someone may remind you of someone else who've caused a traumatic experience to you. A traumatic experience can be something like a car accident. It can be something like someone being molested. It can be rape. So there's a lot of different things that can be traumatic and stay within our lifestyles. And then what is generational trauma? So as I mentioned earlier, so things that are passed down, toxic things that are passed down from one generation to the next. We know a lot of the older generation, and not to stigmatize the older generation, but a lot of the conversation were pretty much hush hush. Things that were supposed to be spoken of, things that were supposed to be talked about were not talked about, even though it may be a toxic behavior that was going on in that home. They did not talk about it. And what happened is that it continued, and you were told to keep that within the family. Don't share it. Don't tell your family's business. A lot of us have heard that. Don't tell your family's business. Keep that within the family. And a lot of those things are often toxic, and they stayed with us. Have you ever spoken to someone who was like maybe in the 80s and 90s, and they're still talking about things that impacted them from a younger age? That's trauma. They're not healed. So breaking cycles, we're going to touch on breaking cycles. And how do we break cycles? First, we have to be intentional. We have to be intentional. And being intentional is hard work. If I said I don't want to be an alcoholic because my dad was an alcoholic, I can say that, but it's hard work. I have to be intentional about that. I have to be intentional about when I go to those social gatherings that I'm not going to consume alcohol. Being intentional about your decision. And then sometimes even when you're intentional, setback happens. And when we have setback, what do? Do we say, oh my gosh, you did that, beat up on yourself? No, we have to say, okay, I did that. Let me start over. Just like God gives us grace. God gives us grace. So we have mercy every morning. So we get an opportunity to start over. So you restart your goals. Have anyone ever been on a diet? So you've been on a diet and it didn't happen, it didn't go so well. So you restart your goals and you realize that you don't do it alone. You have a support. You have a community-based support that's going to support you, that's going to cheer you on. In everything that we do, it's good to have that support and have that foundation. And this one is very important. You have to watch your words. And when I say watch your words, sometimes you have to watch the way you speak to yourself. The way you speak to yourself can cause harm to you more than anyone else. Someone may be telling you, hey, you're doing a great job. I'm so proud of you. I support you. But then when you go home, you're telling yourself, hey, you're dumb. Why did you do that? Why didn't you do it this way? Or you're not putting a lot of positivity towards yourself. So the way you speak to yourself matters. So we have to watch our words and watch our language. And also watching our language can be also the way we speak to our children. How many of us have seen young folks or even older folks and the way they speak to children in the community? It's not always positive. So we have to watch our words and watch our language. And then I'm going to touch on some common emotional signs of trauma. So the first one is sadness, anger, and anxiety. And then the second one is denial, fear, and shame. Shame and self-doubt. A lot of times when people have experienced trauma, they blame themselves. You know, why did you do this? Why didn't you stop that? You know, you could have done this or you could have done that. They have anxiety, and every time they think about the experience, they have anger, and sometimes they go through the stages of grief. These could be some of the stages of grief, you know, but a lot of times people do more self-blame. They do a lot of denial, denying that it happened. And when you're denying that it happened and you're not seeking the help, often it's going to come out. So if you're not getting help, it can come out in your behavior. It can come out in your conversations. It's going to come out one way or the other. All right, so then we're going to touch on different types of trauma. So trauma is a big word. A lot of times people use the word trauma loosely. I've used it loosely myself. Sometimes you had a bad day, you may say, hey, I had a traumatic day, you know, just throwing that word out there. But there's different types of trauma. So we have acute trauma, we have chronic trauma, and then we have complex trauma. And I'm just going to touch on each one of these a little bit and show you some examples. So then acute trauma, let's talk about the symptoms first. So these are some of the symptoms. So you have excessive anxiety or panic. A lot of times you might experience irritation, confusion. You're not able to sleep properly. Sometimes you're restless. You're feeling disconnected from your surroundings or feeling disconnected even when people are around you. You can have people around you and you can still feel isolated and still feel, you know, like no one loves me, no one cares for me. You're having unreasonable lack of trust. Although no one is doing anything to you, you're not trusting. You have the inability to trust or the inability to focus on work or studies. You're not caring for yourself, lack of self-care, and that can impact your grooming, the way you look, and also aggressive behavior. So acute trauma, so this occurs from a single event. So this is one event that happened. So it could be an accident, it could be a rape, an assault, any one of these. Okay, and then the event, it has threatened your emotional, your physical security. So that one car accident that you've had, it actually threatened your security. So you don't want to drive anymore because of that one event. It left a lasting impression on you. And if you don't get that addressed, you know, it can progress later on into something else, such as anxiety and such as some of the symptoms that I've mentioned here. And then we have the chronic trauma. So this is a person who's exposed to multiple long-term and distressing traumatic events. So this can be something such as bullying. We know bullying can start from childhood and then go all the way into adulthood. Bullying not only occurs with children, bullying can occur in the workplace. If you ever work in the workplace with a supervisor who is very aggressive, you know, thinks too much of themselves and not too kind with their words, you've experienced bullying. It can be something such as domestic violence. So we know domestic violence is not a one-time thing. This is something that's usually ongoing. And then some of the symptoms similarly to the first trauma that I mentioned. So it's unpredictably emotional outbursts. So you're getting upset for, you know, any simple things. And you're not getting upset just because of that one thing. It's the underlying factors that you're not addressing. So it's piling up. It's layers that are actually piling up. And then you can have that emotional outburst. You're getting very anxious, extreme anger. And then sometimes you have flashback fatigue. Also, as Tiffany mentioned earlier, with the aches, the body aches, trauma can show up in body aches. It can show up in headaches. It can show up in different physical symptoms, and these are just some of them. You may also, again, have trust issues and not be able to have a stable job. Sometimes you might see someone, you're like, why can't this person hold on a stable job? What's wrong with them? You know, and that's sometimes we have to rephrase the things that we're saying. Instead of saying what's wrong with them, we want to ask what happened. What happened? Why is this person acting this way? There must be something that happened Instead of saying what's wrong, we come from a trauma-informed perspective, and you want to know what happened to them, because there's always something that happened in order for people to exhibit these behaviors. And then we have the complex trauma. So complex trauma, so this is exposure to various multiple traumatic experience. So you've been raped, you have the car accident, you experience domestic violence, and all of these layers are just there and they're not addressed. So that's key, they're not addressed. You haven't sought help for them. You haven't spoken to anyone about them. You just have all of these things pile up and you're like, listen, I can deal with it. You know, I can jog, I'm going to deal with it. And although coping mechanisms are good, we're going to talk about that later, a lot of times you need to seek help. You need to seek professional help to get to deal with trauma. So some of the symptoms of complex trauma, similarly to some of the others, it presents in a form that affects the person's overall health. So, you know, we're bridging the two. Your mental health impacts your physical health and vice versa. So it affects relationship. If you have unaddressed trauma, it's going to affect your relationship with your children, relationship with your peers, relationship with your family. It can affect relationships, excuse me, overall. It affects the way you perform in work. It affects the way you perform in school. And regardless of the type of trauma a person experiences, the difficulty recovery takes time. Okay, so even if you're seeking therapy and you're seeking therapy for a month, and you know you haven't seen any progression, just be patient with yourself. Give yourself some grace, because that trauma has been sitting there for a while, you know, so you want to give yourself grace and take time in getting help. So the coping mechanism, you know, we have both positive and negative coping mechanisms. And I just thought the scriptures was fitting. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present our requests to God. God wants us to be whole mentally, physically, spiritually. Okay, so in our coping mechanism, prayer and meditation can also be one of them. But we're going to talk about positive and negative coping mechanisms. So here are some of the negative coping mechanisms. And the first one, we see that a lot, marijuana. We see a lot of marijuana being used as a coping mechanism for mental health. When you have people using substances and they have the mental health not being addressed, then you have a co-occurring disorder. So that's two disorders functioning as one. All right, so both of them are unaddressed. And the thing is, when they're using these substances, initially it's working, but it's actually not working because it's a negative coping mechanism and it's just masking, it's just covering up. And after a while, you're going to need more. So if you're drinking as a coping mechanism, eventually you're going to need 2 drinks, you're going to need 3 drinks, and you're going to need more. Okay, because it's not a positive coping mechanism. There's also high functioning depression, and we don't hear about this one a lot. So that person who's you know, experiencing domestic violence, they're busy, they're taking care of the kids, they're running errands, they're doing this, they're doing that. You know, they're just keeping themselves busy because they don't want to think about what's actually going on in the home. So they're suppressing their feelings. All right. So it's high functioning depression. You're often busy. So when you get home, all you do is shower, go to sleep, get up the next day, and you go again. So they're extremely busy. That's high functioning depression. And what can happen is that you're exhausting the body. You're exhausting the body. So after a while, your physical health is going to be impacted. And again, the mental health impacting the physical health. Becoming aggressive or violent. So if we have that mental health that's not being addressed, we're having these mood swings from mental health disorders such as bipolar. You're having those mood swings, you don't know how to deal with them. On a positive note, you can become aggressive, you can become violent. We've seen a lot of that. We live in New York City, so we see a lot of aggressive and a lot of violent behavior that sometimes, you know, cause you to question like, hey, what's going on with this person? You know, they seem okay yesterday and then today it's like a totally different person. A lot of times these are unaddressed mental illnesses. And then dysfunctional, unhealthy relationships. This happens a lot. dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship that can be even in family members. Not all family members have positive relationships, and sometimes the relationship can be unhealthy, and you have to love them from a distance. Unfortunately, that's the truth. A lot of family members that I've worked with, especially when I worked in homeless shelter settings, there were a lot of toxic behaviors, and they had to distance themselves from those unhealthy relationships, because if they went back and start mingling with those family members, what that meant was that they're going to start back doing what they're not supposed to do, whether that was drinking, whether that was prostituting. Unfortunately, we had that. You name it, we've had it experiencing. So the thing is, you have to distance yourself from those unhealthy relationships. And then criticizing yourself. We can be our own worst enemy. We can be our own worst enemy. So just criticizing yourself. A lot of times just, looking in the mirror and just saying something positive about yourself makes a huge difference. It does something to your psyche. It changes the way you think. It changes the dynamics, changing the functioning. So just, trying to do less negative self-talk and more positive self-talk. All right. So 52 weeks of mental wellness workbook. So this is a workbook that I've created using Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So he is a psychologist and produced these 5 different levels. And Maslow stated that in order for you to get to the different level, you must achieve one successfully. So for example, the last box talk about the different needs of physiological, safety, love and belonging, and self-actualization. So in order for you to get from physiological needs to safety needs, according to Maslow, you have to successfully fulfill your physiological needs. So physiological needs, what is that? So that's your basic needs: food, shelter, clothing, warmth. If I'm hungry and you're telling me to save, it's not going to happen. If I'm hungry, you're telling me to get a job, it's not going to happen. It's just like, us seeing homeless persons outside begging for food. They were like, why don't they get a job? They're not thinking about working because they're hungry. Their basic needs are not met. So unless their basic needs are met, that's the only how they're gonna go to the next need, which can be the first one has to be fulfilled successfully. And in this workbook, what I try to do is give you different activities, just simple techniques on fulfilling these needs on various levels. And this is just 3 of them. So the first one, it says to go to the park and do some deep breathing exercise. And this is something Shannon is going to talk about a little bit more. Deep breathing exercise. Deep breathing exercise, there's so many benefits with just deep breathing, sending oxygen to the brain, drinking water, getting enough sleep. I can confess I do not drink enough water. I need to drink more. Getting enough sleep. I try to. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But we need sleep. Adults need sleep. As you get older, you need sleep. A lot of us function on 5 hours sleep. We function on 6 hours sleep. We function on less. Different periods of times, you sleep at different times. But it would be good to have a nice set sleep routine because the body needs it and the body requires it. So going to your safety and security needs, as I stated earlier, if your basic needs are not fulfilled, getting to the next level, which is safety and security, can be hard. All right. So it can be impacted by environmental factors. And these are just some of them: abuse, domestic violence, job insecurities, lack of financial security, and not meeting self-sufficiency. All right. So I'm just going to throw that question out there and just ask one or two of you to respond. Where do you feel the safest? Where do you feel safest? Think of all the places that we dwell in on a daily basis. And where would you say that you feel the safest? For me, I would say I feel safe in my home.
Same,
anyone else?
Same here.
Home. Same.
Home. Yeah, and most
Yeah, in
people
my home.
Yeah,
home.
most people would say that they feel the safest in their home. All right. And that is where we should feel the safest. But unfortunately, that is not the case for many. COVID-19 pandemic, the rates of domestic violence spiked during COVID because for the first time in many years, some spouse actually had to spend time with each other and realize like, hey, I really don't like spending time with you, you know. So DV was very high during the COVID-19 pandemic. Child abuse was extremely high during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's because we spent so much time with each other at home. Something that should sound normal, hey, we spending time at home, but you know, are we really spending time? Are we on our phones doing different things, but are we actually spending quality time together? All right, another one is other people's opinion, causing you to stress, causing you to worry. You're worrying about what other people think about you. You know, if I wear this, what is this person going to think about me? If I say this, what is this person going to think about me? All of those things, they're very simple, but we don't understand how they're impacting our mental health. They're actually impacting our mental health because if I'm at home and I'm here stressing about what my colleague thought about me yesterday or what my colleague said about me yesterday, it's impacting my mental health. I'm not able to rest, I'm not able to relax, and I'm home. All right, so an activity here that you can do is this week, just evaluate the various form of relationship and safety. So various form of relationships can be relationships on the job, relationships in your family member, relationships in your friends, and do you feel safe in that relationship? And what ways do you feel safe? How does that person make you safe? And if you're not feeling safe with that person, you may want to reevaluate. Do I need to distance myself? Do I need to cut this person off? Or, you know, what exactly do I need to do? And then love and belonging. Who doesn't want to feel love? Who doesn't want to belong? So Maslow say that once you complete those two different levels, the next one is love and belonging. And I just have to add that these does not necessarily have to happen in the same order. The physiological, yes, but sometimes you might have safe and security, love and belonging, or you might have love and belonging and then safety and security. So it does not always go in that order. And then sometimes you may get to self-actualization and then something happens in life circumstances, and you head all the way back to stage one. Okay, so human beings need to feel safe and loved. We all want to feel safe and loved. The activity here is how often do you check in on your family? A lot of times we don't really check in on each other. It's like, hey, how you doing? And then that's it. Social media, we know that it's a huge distraction now. A lot of times people we don't even eat dinner together. We're not at the dinner table.
All right, thanks.
Or sometimes we're all on the phone. We're watching TV, we're caught up in the movie, we're watching the game, or we're doing something. We're not taking that time to actually spend quality time with each other. So one question you can ask your family member, because a lot of times, especially if you have kids, how was your day? Good. How was your day? Okay. So you can tell them, tell me one thing that was good about your day. And then tell me one thing that was not so good about your day. And when they tell you that, that can actually spark the conversation, because the one thing that was good, then you can stretch that out a little bit. And the one thing that was not so good, you can stretch that conversation out a little bit. So instead of just going, hey, how was your day? You want to say, tell me one thing that was good, or tell me one thing that was not so good about your day. And then our esteem needs. So this is usually our self-respect, our respect for others. There's two categories. And for this, the activity here is like, how do you speak to yourself? There was that theme again, how we speak to ourselves. How we speak to ourselves matters. How you treat yourself can manifest in how you treat others. You guys have heard that saying, treat others the way you want to be treated. So if I'm not treating myself right, how am I going to treat others? A lot of times the way I'm treating myself is going to reflect on how I treat others. And then get yourself a vision board to monitor your achievement. You know, I always promote celebrating small milestones. We don't have to wait until we get that major job or that major degree to celebrate ourselves. We want to celebrate the steps along the way to any type of achievement that you set on your vision board. Write positive affirmations, reinforcing positivity in your life. And also journaling. I love to journal. Journal is a way of not internalizing emotions, not internalizing feelings or trauma. It's like you're taking it out of a form of self-expression and you're putting it on paper. What some people do after they put it on paper, they might just rip it up. And that's just symbolizing, hey, this is done, this is over, I'm not dealing with this anymore. So journaling can be a very good form of coping mechanism to release stress. And then finally, on his hierarchy of needs, self-actualization. So this is attaining your full potential, whatever your full potential is. This would be the final stage in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is an ongoing process because you may attain one thing, and after you attain one thing, it's like, okay, what's next? What else do I want to do? All right. And then leaving your comfort zone. So a lot of times to attain self-actualization, we have to leave our comfort zone. You know, we're human beings, we're creatures of habits. Doing things makes us comfortable. So leaving your comfort zone is often a struggle. And this is just a list of it. So assistance in dealing with change, life's transition, establishing new connections. I heard one speaker say that if you're the smartest person in your group or your circle, you're in the wrong group. You need to be in a group where people challenge you to come up a little higher. So establishing new connections, and that might aid with providing things such as career growth and then personal growth. And then how do you leave your comfort zone? So slow progress, slow gradually. Don't be hard on yourself again if you have a small setback. Don't be hard on yourself if you had a major setback. You know, you just reevaluate, where do I need to change? And then you want to ask people close to you for help when needed. Ask for help. A lot of times for us, that is very hard. We don't want to ask for help. We think that we got it. So we want to ask for help. And then we want to trust the process. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey is not the same. So we want to trust the process. We want to take simple steps, simple techniques in our journey to achieve our goals. All right, and then I'm gonna wrap up here. This is my information. If you need to reach out to me, this is my website. You know, feel free to reach out. I'm also gonna get your emails from Tiffany. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions before I pass it on over to Shannon?
So many good
All
gems.
right.
Can you post your information one more time, please?
Sure, I'm gonna type it in the chat while Shannon takes the floor.
Thanks.
All right, Shannon, you can share whenever you're ready to.
Good evening, everybody. Can everyone hear me?
We hear you.
Yes.
Please let me know if you have any issues hearing me. I have been having a few challenges with bandwidth tonight, but I think we should be good to go. Let me see if I could show you guys my presentation. Hold on a minute. Okay, here it is. How can I share this now? There we are. Okay. How's everyone feeling so far today? Just to get some feedback. Curious to know how you guys are. Just doing a quick check-in. How are you feeling, everybody? You could give a few responses. Whoever feels like sharing how they're feeling.
Tired, exhausted.
I'm exhausted.
Okay.
Tired, Auntie Bree?
Exhausted, tired, exhausted.
I see great in the chat from Oslin.
I'm excited for the information you're about to present to us.
Yeah, great information.
Janae, thank you for being here. I'm excited to share with you
You're welcome.
all. Things, as you know, Tiffany and Dr. Francesca, they just did a really wonderful job about all of the wonderful things I like talking to my clients about when we are in individual sessions. So wondering, can you guys see my screen yet?
Yeah, we're seeing your slide.
Yes. Awesome. So I know we're talking about tools tonight, everybody, and using our tools to break barriers. My focus is healing. Healing in life is an ongoing process. We don't just heal in one moment and it's over. That's not even the case. I hear a lot of people in our community saying, well, I healed that and I'm okay now. Mm-mm. There's still vibrations. There's still little nuances of the pain and of the trauma. Dr. Fran, you did such a great job of expounding on that I just really quickly before I get started, I'll share with you who I am. My name is Shannon Cameron, LMHC. I went to grad school. I got my licensure in counseling, and I've worked in the New York City health and hospital systems, the shelter systems, many clinics. And over the years, I just gained so much information and knowledge from being out there in the trenches that in the midst of the pandemic, I passed my exam and I said, it might be time to start to work for myself. And one of the biggest things that I found to be a challenge was leaving my 9 to 5, because I came from this family who was from the islands that believed working nonstop, you know, working overtime, not ever sleeping, not spending time with family, just putting in and grinding. And I didn't want that for myself. And I was like, wow, how can I actually achieve more for myself and lay up the foundation for my daughter and my friends and my family? Oh, okay, I could try to be this example and I could, you know, be a counselor and talk about some of the things that we don't like to talk about in our community. Well, guys, I took on a big job in the middle of the pandemic, where a lot of us were going into like isolation mode because we had no other choice. We were isolating in our homes with our family members who we hadn't sat down and had a conversation with for years, right? So here I am starting my practice, and I'm getting all kinds of people. I'm getting people from all over the country. I'm getting teenagers. I'm getting older people, every demographic, you name it, white, Black, Indian, Chinese, you name it. And I've learned that one thing is so true. A lot of us cannot look in our own mirror. And the reason why we can't do that a lot of times is because we don't have a right relationship with God. We don't have a right relationship. If we don't have a relationship with God, then we can't have a right relationship with ourselves. And then we can't talk about things that are really, really impacting us. So I am affiliated with the group Practice Talk New York City. And my practice's name is Soul Journey MHC LLC. And it's a telehealth practice. I accept all major insurances. I do sliding scale and I do out of pocket pay. So if anybody has anybody they want to send over to me, you could write down my number. It's right there. I'm online also. And you could also look through your healthcare provider registry, and you may find me there listed as a therapist that is in network with your insurance. So the first question I'd like to ask everyone, are you breathing mindfully? I'd love to hear your feedback here. Are you breathing mindfully? Are you thinking about how deeply you're breathing when you're talking? Do you feel like you run out of breath easily?
Yes.
Anybody?
Yes.
Who said
Yes.
that?
Sabrina.
Who's that?
Sabrina.
Yes.
And what's happening when you're not breathing correctly? You think? What are some of the other things that are happening to you?
Your heart
Not
start
getting
beating
enough
fast.
oxygen.
Your heart start beating fast.
You're getting sweaty palms even. You start picking at things maybe. You start fidgeting everywhere in your seat. So what I'm going to attempt to do tonight, before we even get started, I know you guys heard a lot of information. I want to know if you're willing to do a breathing technique with me. This is called the 4-7-8 breathing technique.
Sure.
You guys ready?
Yep, let's do it.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. Okay, before we even begin, let me read it to you. So before starting the breathing pattern, adopt a comfortable sitting position wherever you are. And in order to actually do this, you have to place the tip of the tongue on the tissue right behind the top of your teeth, like so. To use the 4-7-8 technique, focus on the following breathing pattern. You have to empty first your lungs of your air, breathing in quietly through your nose for 4 seconds. You hold your breath for a count of 7 seconds, and then you exhale forcefully through your mouth, pursing the lips and making a whoosh sound for 8 seconds. You have to repeat this cycle for up to 4 times. You can keep on doing it, and it may put you to sleep. We're only going to do it 3 times tonight, guys, because I don't want you falling asleep on me before I get to my information, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to try to do this together, and I'm going to count you guys down so you could be ready. So don't get started yet. Read through the steps, right? If you cannot hold your breath for long, try a shorter pattern, okay? So do breathing in the nose for 2 seconds, hold your breath for a count of 3 to 5 seconds, exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds. When you guys are ready, I'm going to count you in. So everybody just take a minute, empty your lungs of the air. So at this point, you should be breathing out with me. Empty your lungs of all the air. Now on the count of 3, I'm going to ask you to begin breathing in, and I'm going to count 4 seconds. Then I'm going to ask you to hold your breath for a count of 7 seconds. And then after I say release, you're going to release for a count of 8 seconds. All right, guys? So now that your lungs are free of all the air out of your lungs, I'm going to count you in. 1, 2, 3. Begin breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now whoosh. Whoosh. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whoosh. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now breathe in for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for a count of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Release for 8 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When you're ready, you can come right on back to us and let me know how you're feeling. Is anyone feeling lightheaded?
A little bit.
Is anyone feeling tired?
A little bit.
A little bit. Is anyone feeling more relaxed?
Yes, I am.
I am.
Is it okay to feel relaxed and lightheaded?
Yeah. So what I did was I called your attention into your breathing. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I mean, I know you don't know this is my favorite biblical, the book of the Bible is Job that I'm about to read from. Job 27:3. It says, all the while my breath is in me and the Spirit of God is in my nostrils. In some scripture, it says the Ruach of God is in my nostrils. Has anyone heard what that, did you hear the word Ruach? R-U-A-C-H? Does anyone in the room know what that's? I know we all are Christians here and we go to church. Can anyone tell me what Ruach is?
I know Ruach is said to be the breath of God
breath
that he
of
blew
God.
into man.
The breath of God.
So
Amen.
why are we not breathing properly? If God breathed life into you, why are we not breathing properly, ladies and gentlemen? What's happening there? Where did we forget to breathe? When did we stop breathing? Can anyone answer that for me?
because we're not taking good care of ourselves.
That's one point. Thank you for bringing that up. That's perfect. Self-care, right? Because again, we learn our self-care from our family members, and if there's generations and generations of trauma, we have moms, we have dads, we have grandmas, and we learn how to breathe from them. So if we see our mom out of breath, or if mom and dad are fighting and they're not taking deep breaths enough to talk and say right words to one another, we're learning how to breathe from trauma experiences. So now when you're traumatized, the first thing that happens is you stop breathing the way you normally do. You start breathing faster, right? In an accident, sometimes people just stop breathing. We faint because now we can't process the trauma that's happening, as Dr. Fran talked about. Sometimes trauma is accumulated. So now that's impacting the way you're breathing, because the first trauma now dictates the shortness of breath. And the more you don't process your trauma, the less you're breathing, the harder it is to catch your breath. Whenever you think about that trauma that happened, you're now holding your chest, you're not breathing. So before I go any further, does anyone have any comments or questions about anything I just said?
This is not a question. Can you just reverse the breathing technique slide?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So this technique is a really good technique to use before you go to bed, guys. I want you to have this. So if you need to take a screenshot, I know Tiffany's going to share this, and I'm going to give her a fact sheet of all of the different techniques that I use with my clients to help you ground. Grounding is one thing that we use when we're working with clients in therapy to help you be able to have a calm experience in your session, to be able to talk about your trauma and really process it for that 60-minute session. Okay? So breathing, the way you're breathing is very important. Is everyone ready for me to go to the next slide? Because I'm going to ask you some questions here.
Go ahead. We're ready.
Answer these because I think a few of them are ready. So how are you breathing? How important is it for you to show up strong versus healed for your family, your friends, or loved ones? Put a star next to that question. Do you ever have shortness of breath? If so, when? What does it feel like? Does it feel like your chest is on fire? Tiff talked a little bit about that. Can you catch yourself when you're not breathing correctly? That's a very important question. And why is your breath so important to your nervous system and your overall wellness? So just make a mental note of those questions as we continue. So here are the benefits of breath work on your mental health. Reduction, it leads to reduction of depressive disorders. It helps you to boost your self-esteem. When you're breathing correctly, most of the time I notice I'm breathing correctly is when I'm praying. And I pray an awful lot. So it helps me to connect with God because I know he's the reason why I have the breath in my lungs, you know? So I don't want to offend him by breathing too fast, because ultimately, if we are believers and we love the Lord the way he loves us and we know he gives us grace, that should be enough space that you give yourself to breathe now and say, okay, Lord, you gave me this breath in mind. I'm going to take a minute, practice the pause, and I'm going to slow down in this moment because I could tell I'm not breathing correctly. And that's going to throw me off. That's going to dysregulate my health. Okay. So another part of a benefit for breath work is it helps you to break patterns of negative thinking because it makes you practice the pause when you remind yourself to breathe. It helps with emotional regulation. It supports you with addiction. And with every breath you take, ironically, people who smoke cigarettes and smoke weed, they think that breathing that way is actually helping them. But it's actually taking more breath away from you when you smoke and when you smoke marijuana. It's not calming you down. It's actually making you more tense and more nervous. Okay? So when you're breathing in clean, healthy air, that's when you're physically resetting your nervous system. You're releasing toxins from the body because oxygen is what we need to release those toxins. And ironically, a lot of us don't even know our skin even breathes. So every part of your body needs fresh air. If you're not breathing correctly, nothing's releasing. Okay? So that's why a lot of us feel like, oh, I got to do a cleanse. I feel like I have so many toxins in my body. Possibility is you need to breathe a little bit deeper. You need to do some deep breathing techniques. Deep breathing techniques help to improve sleep. It helps to balance your immunity. It helps you with digestion. It helps to optimize body function and homeostasis, which Tiff talked about in an earlier part of our presentation. Breathing properly also helps you spiritually. It gives one access to the presence of God, your inner truth, your sense of personal space, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed or crowded. We live in the city here. We're always in a crowded space. When you breathe correctly, you can be in a crowded space, but if you're breathing correctly, you won't even really pay attention to it because you're breathing in air and your lungs are feeling filled with air. So now everyone standing around you, even it might be uncomfortable, you might be able to calm yourself down enough to get yourself out of that crowded space and into a space where you feel more comfortable. So ultimately, it regulates you. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about what I just shared there? Okay, then we'll move a little bit further and I'll share with you some other important points. Breathing properly can be used to relax when you are feeling stressed, specifically helping to regulate the hormone cortisol, which Tiffany talked about, which controls your fight or flight trauma response, the trauma that Dr. Fran talked about. Too much cortisol can lead to negative long-term health responses. One of the main points I like to make here is your cortisol levels are higher in the morning. So you want to start your day off with longer exhales for down regulating because you might be worrying in the morning when you wake up. You might be worrying about your day. You might not be talking to yourself in the best, most positive way. So what I want you all to be practicing in the morning when you wake up is taking very long, deep breaths where you're exhaling longer. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So breath work tones your vagus nerve, which is the switch that helps you turn into rest or get rested. That's why after you did your breath exercises with me, you just felt a little tired. We want to help you to regulate your breathing in therapy because it helps you also to slow down your thoughts and be able to think clearly. And then another big point that I like to share with my clients is deep belly breathing has a very therapeutic effect on chronic pain, okay? Because it relaxes the muscles, which otherwise tense up as a result of pain, and in turn further aggravates the pain itself. So how many of you guys have experienced intense pain? Anybody went through labor pains and you had to do all that breathing and pushing, right? In order to bring your babies into the world, you had to breathe deeply because they say that when you're breathing deeply, it helps to ease the pain. Chronic pain is eased by deep breathing, not Tylenol or Advil. Think about that. Think about that. Any questions or comments before I continue? All right, guys, we're coming down the home stretch. Anybody? I heard somebody on mute.
That was just me, Shannon. You broke up a little bit, but I think we get the gist.
Awesome. Please let me know if I'm breaking up because my service over here is not the best. So this is your window of tolerance. I wanted to show you all this because this is the easiest way to explain everything that Dr. Fran shared with you about trauma and how you're responding to it. So when you're in a hyper aroused state, I want you to think of your head being on fire. That's when all of the heat in your body is rising to the head and you're feeling anxious. You're feeling overwhelmed. You're feeling chaotic responses. You're feeling outbursts in response to the trauma or in response to the worry. You're getting emotional. You're feeling aggressive. You're feeling angry. You're raging sometimes. Sometimes you're feeling rigid, like being mean to people. Sometimes you're feeling obsessive compulsive, like you want to go around and clean everything, or you're having racing thoughts, or you're overeating, or you're not eating enough, or you're practicing addictions or impulsivity. This is the state of hyperarousal. This is when you're in fight or flight response in response to the trauma, acute, chronic, or accumulated trauma, right? So now I want you guys to think of this part of your nervous system being at the top of your spine. That's the sympathetic nervous system, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where you're feeling all of this fight and you want to run away sometimes and you just want to just rage. In order to understand this, you have to understand that you're outside of what is called your comfort zone, where you're able to actually self-soothe, breathe deeply, be mindful, be present in the here and now, be listening to yourself, be showing up for yourself. So you're outside of your window of tolerance, everybody. Okay? You can actually fluctuate from that red zone and go deep down into that hypoarousal state, which is happening in the dorsal part of your nervous system. And that's why it's down below and in the color blue. That's where you're suicidal, you're disassociated, you're not present, you're unavailable, you're shutting down. Okay. All of the responses to trauma when you don't want to do anything. Okay. You're disconnected, you're on autopilot, you're not displaying any emotions, your feelings are flat, you're feeling separated from yourself and others. So you're in a frozen state of being. Ironically and not ironically, we can fluctuate between both of these states, and it's like watching that monitor, the heart monitor, go up and down, up and down, up and down. Breath work is one of the only things that I have found that some of my clients are able to get back into their window of tolerance. So I showed this to you all so that you could understand that there are severe causes in life, mainly fear and trauma, bring us out of our window of tolerance. So we have fear of unconscious thoughts, bodily feelings, having the inability to feel like you're in control of everything. Some of us want to control everything, and we can't control everything, right? Because God is in control of everything. So sometimes that entails, all the time it entails, giving God back his pen and saying, hey, Lord, I need you to take control. That helps you to get back in your window of tolerance, okay? Abandonment, feeling like you don't exist, feeling rejected. All of this brings you out of your window of tolerance, and it dysregulates you emotionally, mentally, and physiologically. So now, in order to get you back in your window of tolerance, it's important that you remain mindful, being present in the here and now, using grounding exercises like deep breathing and techniques for self-soothing. I'm sending Tiff a script of all of the things you could do to self-soothe and bring yourself into a state of deeper to your window of tolerance, okay? One of the biggest things is being able to recognize your limiting self-beliefs, countering it with positive statements about yourself, and making new choices to do a new thing. I don't know if you guys know Tabitha Brown, but I love her. I follow. She just wrote a new book called I Did a New Thing. And this is about healing, is about doing a new thing. So now that you all know what your window of tolerance could look like, I hope that you're able to take notes from this screen to help you learn how to notice when you're outside of your window of tolerance and get yourself back into that window of tolerance so you're in a soothed, calm, cool, and collected and connected state of mind. All righty? So where does all of this stem from? Just jumping back into generational trauma and understanding the tools. I'm going to give you guys some tangible tools now. So really quickly, our parents and family members, they provide a blueprint for how we regulate our emotions and how we communicate our feelings and needs. We learn to breathe, how to eat what we eat, and how to think what we think from our very first examples, our mom and our dad. These are 3 questions. I want you guys to write your answers in the chat if you can. But the first one is, what was the mood of your household as you were growing up? Was there space for you to be you? Number 2, were you allowed to feel seen, heard, and loved in the presence of your family and those who raised you? Number 3, how do you go about accepting compliments? Do you accept compliments well? Like if someone says to you, oh my gosh, you look so pretty today, or I like your hair, or you did that presentation so well, or oh my gosh, you're brilliant. Does that make you feel good, or does it feel hard to accept the compliment? Keep your answers in mind, because I think you'll find it's very interesting to know why you responded a certain way if you said no, or if you responded that there was no space for you to be you, if you didn't feel seen, heard, loved, or validated in the presence of your family. These are all really important points to note. And did you all know that chronic illness is actually connected to generations of stress in your family? Yeah, it is. So, main point, a parent cannot give you something they never received. How does this statement make you feel? Are you breathing steady when you heard me say that? Or did your breathing change when you read the statement? I'm open to some feedback here if you guys are willing.
Hi, Shannon. This is
I
Sister
don't
Angela.
want to move too fast.
It's such a wonderful
Any
pleasure.
feedback, guys?
Can you hear
Go ahead.
me?
Sure.
Yes. Thank you so
Yes.
much for. I know I've always liked to appreciate the fact that I have breath in my lungs, but I want to say that you really, really, really bring home the fact how important it for us to really appreciate the way we breathe and that breath that we have in our lungs. I really appreciate. I thank you so much for what you have shared, and your excitement has really been awesome this evening. And I just want it. This is more a statement. It's not a question, but I just hope that we, as especially Christians, and I like the fact that Sister Tiffany also mentioned that scripture that tell us, I wish above all that we will prosper and be in good health, because health is wealth. A lot of times we think that it's the money, but if you are not well, money does not matter when you are not well, when you're not able to manage it and be able to enjoy it the way that you should. So I really appreciate the time that you ladies have shared, and I really love the platform, and I really, really am excited and looking forward for to hear more about what we can do as women, to continue to really bring home the fact that we carry our families, and it's important that we also let them understand how much their mental health, their bodies, and the fact that God really want us to be healthy, if we can, because we have shy away from
Oh
this in
yeah.
the church for so long, and I think it's time that I'm so glad that we are having this platform. I'm speaking now because I'm traveling, and just in case that I don't get a chance to speak again, I just wanted to say thank you to you all for being here. Thank you, Sister Tiffany, for allowing the women and for those that are on to be able to have this, and for your willingness to extend this opportunity when it was offered to you, and I really appreciate that. So I hope for those that are on this evening to try to go a little further than not just what we hear now, but just to go practice it and do it, because we are losing too much of our family. And the only way that we can probably lessen that is if we allow them to know how important it is to be mentally healthy, and because of that, then we are able to take and care of our bodies as well. So thank you again, and thank you all for being here, that are here on this platform this evening. God bless you all. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sister Angela.
Thank you,
Those are
Sister.
some powerful words. I appreciate that. Tiff, I think I just need like 5 or 10 more minutes and then I'll be done with everything.
Sure.
Yeah, so I just wanted to show everyone what it means to like do something to understand the relationships in your family and how we're all connected. If you were to go into therapy, a therapist may do something that's called a genogram, and this is the way we actually figure out how certain things actually got passed down to us. So you have a little diagram here. The box means male, the circle means female, and you could create it on your own at home. I know that this is an activity that could get a little involved. I used to do it with my college students. So basically, we fit this in during an assessment because it not only provides great information about you as the client, but it can also inform you about the family history of mental illness as well as physical illness. Anything that has gone wrong in the family, you guys can actually go back 3 or 4 generations to pull it out and see what you need to work on in your family therapy sessions and what you need to tackle. What are some of the secrets that have not been talked about? Like in this case, you see the person had cocaine use, the person here had bipolar. And if the 18 and 22-year-old never saw this, they may never have known because this parent was separated from them. you know, and then this child could go along and start using cocaine and never know that they had a family member that had this in their history. So we have to talk about these secrets and go into counseling sometimes with a therapist to have some more support to understand why some of these things happen, why our family members go to using substances and addictions when they're not feeling seen, heard, or loved. Okay, so these topics do bring up a lot for us, and I appreciate your words, Sister Angela, because it definitely is a topic, and these are the hard conversations. A lot of people don't want to do a genogram. When people come to counseling and I say do a genogram, they're like, Shannon, I had no idea how much I would see in my family that needs to be corrected, unlearned, and so many things we have to work on together as a family to learn how to love one another in a healthy way. Because we've learned some unhealthy or maladaptive love behaviors. Okay. So I'm just going to go on to my next slide. This is a negative self-talk stopping technique that I want you all to try. When you get a copy of this slide, the first S, if you guys hear SOS, what does that mean? Emergency, right? So the first S means you stop. Mentally tell yourself to stop, to give you the opportunity to address the thought and interrupt the cycle. Observe what you are saying to yourself and how it is making you feel. And then you shift. So I want you to shift out of that space. You shift with prayer. You can shift with meditation. You can shift with talking or having a fun conversation with a friend or a family member. But shift your cognitive, emotional, or your behavioral response by using positive coping skills and techniques. Okay? So I hope that you guys are open to trying this. It's very quick and simple. When you notice yourself having a negative internal dialogue with yourself, stop. Observe what you're saying to yourself and how it's making you feel, and then shift out of there into a more positive coping skill or technique. Say to yourself, hey, here we go. I'm going to just skip that because they went over that already. I'm going to go right down here. I think Fran talked about using your boundaries. Okay. Negative versus positive thoughts and looking in the mirror and hugging yourself. I'll end here, Tiff, just not so we don't keep you guys longer. Instead of saying I can't do this, practice saying I can do this because I've done things similar to this before. Instead of saying to yourself, I always make mistakes, say I do many things well. Instead of saying to yourself, I'm never going to finish this, try, I've finished tasks like this before. Instead of thinking the thought, my friends are better at this than I am, try thinking the thought, everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. I'm better than my friends at I'm better than my friends at other things. Meaning always elevating yourself with a positive word, because the words you use on yourself, that's what you're going to be exuding into the world. Okay? So I'll end there. If you guys have any feedback or questions, or if you know anyone who needs therapy, please feel free to reach out to me. I know Tiff is going to share my information. And I hope that I did not go too fast. Just some quick tips before I end. Please be sure you're talking to yourself as you would speak to your best friend. You are and can be your own best friend. Do not allow others to talk to you anyhow. Use a feather, put down the sledgehammer. Talk to yourself the way you imagine God's voice speaking to you. Okay. And I know that could sound a little, but I think of God as a loving God. And I know he has to reprimand us when it's, time. But I like to think that the way that God communicates with me is gently. And I know sometimes when I hear his voice in my spirit guiding me to do certain things the right way and guiding me away from the wrong, I know it's a gentle voice that I'm hearing and feeling. So why do you think we have or get the right to talk to ourselves and beat up on ourselves? Well, it's because we learned that language from listening to our parents in the way they talk to themselves, unfortunately. So I'm just here to encourage you to speak kindly to yourself. And that's how I choose to end today. Remember, you are beautifully and wonderfully made. And you should always trust yourself and give yourself kindness. And remember that God loves you. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. I just want to thank everyone for coming out, on the Zoom and taking part and being engaged during this time. Again, this is something that we're probably going to try to do every now and again. So now that we have everybody's information, we can start sharing things and just reach out and let us know if there's anything that you guys think that, we can bring to you and have as a discussion, whether it be on health conditions, whether it be more information on mental health and wellness and self-care, let us know. Thank you, Sister Angela, for allowing us to have this platform and for just like allowing us to share what we do in the secular world, like, in our everyday lives when we treat patients and we don't, we're able to bring this to you guys here today. Was there any last words, any last comments from anyone?
Yes, it's Sister Michelle Standback. I just want to say that the information was great. It's like a breath of fresh air. This reminds me of a scripture when you said God breathed his nostril the breath of life, and we all are living souls. So that's great information. We all need it every day. Thanks so much for that.
Amen, amen. All right, well, thank
This
you,
is Sister
everyone.
Jewel.
Go ahead. Yes, Sister Jewel.
Okay,
Sorry.
this is Sister Jewel, very edifying for me, and I don't know, but it's anyway, it's a lot. It's very edifying for me, and I glad I was able to get the information to be on today.
All right. Just remember to breathe, right?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Judith, and just to say in a quick, this is amazing, and we need to practice what we learned here today for others, our children, our grandchildren, to speak to them with this way that we are learning, that every word affects and words have weight. So when we speak to our children, when we see them around in the church, they're all our kids. As you mentioned, Sister Tiffany, that it's the village. So I just, want all of us to be encouraged to keep speaking with kindness to one another, to each other, to ourselves, to our children. So that's my takeaway.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, ladies. So on that note, we will end for tonight. Thank you for sticking with us. We know we went over a little bit, but it's a lot of information to cover, and we wanted to make sure that we got everything to you today. So again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at the next talk. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
You too.
Yeah, good night, everybody. Sweet sleep.
Good night. Sweet sleeps.
Sweet sleep. God go with you all.